how we dance that child song in school where you call it Injulakeche. I was laughing at
it. It was really funny, but the body movement, it looks like it's funny, but of course it has
it's doing something to the system
for you, internally and even outward. It keeps you fit, the body, the spirit, and the mind. So of course, exercise is something that cannot be overemphasized.
No, it cannot be.
Even though we don't do much of it, it's something that we should take serious.
But this looks very light and very. Be your tie, be your whatever it is, those that have the Christian mother hand, maybe the hip, what's it called, the back fleshy part and all that. So that helps you shake that off. It's a full body movement, basically, from what I say there. And thank you so much for bringing us to such aerobics. I'm sure our audience are going to pick up this because it looks very easy. Trust me. For those ones that say, how can I even start now? There's a little way to start.
Exactly. You don't have to start by going to, like I said, lifting 50 kg.
Go to the gym and stressing. There are little things in the house.
I saw my mom today. She was telling my younger one that she saw her exercise on TikTok.
You see?
And she should come help her do that exercise. And one thing about exercise, it's not really about your age. You can be in your 50s, 60s, 70s, but then you need it. You have to take that walk because you think, and what's the essence? Honestly, if you do it today, tomorrow, next tomorrow, you will see.
You feel it. You feel it better. And then with such exercise, just like we gave you good food and a balanced diet, you will good.
You also have to find a way to balance it by exercising.
Because dieting, exercising gives you the body shape you're looking for, gives you the light weight, and makes you feel very easy to do your duties or move around and get the best of yourself. Well, that's it on that particular segment. We thought we should bring that to guide you and walk you through that. But it's time to jump into our discussion segment. And like we said, it's about the alignment and realignment and also the build up to 2027 general election. There's a whole lot of conversation happening. I want you to understand with us. And the focus right now is on Nigeria's political crossroads. There's a whole lot happening on the Nigeria's political crossroads where we're looking at the issue around money, primaries, and the 2027 realignment of politicians. Well, like I said, I like when it comes to put it up at a fixed position because some parts put at 25 million. So if when you contest for a seat, you should be looking at having enough money to even purchase the form. And then when you purchase the form, don't forget you have a lot of people who rally around you.
Campaigns that you do,
campaigns, consultations, all of that are the issues in the front burner, and which is something that is very important for us to talk about. But let's also walk through our audience to this segment, Mukhtar. Well, let's tell you that Nigeria's mentioned releasing primary election timetables and also witnessing fresh waves of defections and coalition talks. Well, let's start with the ruling All Progressive Congress because that's one that's the party in power. Well, the ruling All Progressives Congress recently proposed presidential nomination forms pegged at as much as 100 million naira, while other political parties, including the Labour Party, African Democratic Congress, and the African Action Congress, have also announced varying costs and primary schedules. Well, at the same time, Nigeria is witnessing major political realignment, with opposition figures moving across party lines amid coalition negotiations and internal party disputes ahead of the polls scheduled for January 2027. Well, the discussion segment, on this segment particularly, we want to examine whether the soaring cost of nomination forms is shutting out young Nigerians, of course, because we know when a young Nigerian who's not doing so fine financially gets such amount of money, imagine what is pegged for presidential seats.
Of course, we've got the initiatives like the Not Too Young to Run,
which is a platform for the young people.
Even if you have legislation that allows you to run,
where's the fund?
Where's the fund to run?
So while we're looking at also the young Nigerians, let's also look at the case of the grassroots politicians who don't have the big bags, like we call it, that will help them push for it. So how party primaries may shape the democratic process is what we're looking at, whether the emerging coalition can truly challenge entrenched political structures. And of course, that's one of the focus we're looking at. We see that if we don't talk about these things, if we don't look at it, it's like probably parties would find a way of understanding what the focus is and how to navigate through it. But let's begin with the rising cost of the funds, basically, that we talked about. Many Nigerians believe politics is becoming increasingly exclusive.
Monetized.
And monetized. Let's talk from that perspective.
I've always been of that opinion that Nigerian politics all over the world is not cheap. That's one thing for sure. Politics is expensive. But in Nigeria, it seems to be much more expensive. And it's a worrisome situation, because if we intend to have a nation that is, like you said, inclusive, where we all have people from the grassroots, people with disability, people like 100 million just to obtain the nomination form. And I asked myself, if I get to office, how much is an average political earner? Even the president, how much is his statutory salary based on the law? It's not so much. It's not up to that 100 million. So if you allow these people spend so much money on campaigns, on elections, on settling the caucus, settling the grassroots stakeholders and all of that, and they get into office, the first thing that they might bother themselves with, it would not be to serve the people. It will be serving their own interests.
Of course, because they want to recoup.
Of course, because if I spend 100 million plus on...
The family has to feed.
That's the question. Because I have got a life. I had an investment. I had a business, which I probably put on the line to get into office. So I asked myself, this is an investment I made. And of course, every investment, the essence of every investment is to get returns. So I would look for a way to recoup that money, and that is where we find things like people embezzling common patrimony, people taking monies that are meant for development projects, that are meant for developing the people, and then siphoning this money into personal offices. So what I'm saying in essence is, I feel if we do not put so much attraction into our polity, we get to see more people participate. People who actually even are of self-interest. Because if you tell yourself, if our politics is one that is not based on money, if an office is not attractive, if it doesn't have a big paycheck, it doesn't have those incentives that are attached to an office, like you having the sirens go with you as a politician, like you having those much largesse when you travel and all of those things. If you don't have that, and what you have is a basic
service that goes on with you. And just like you mentioned, all of these issues raised, some concerns are also in the part that questions have been asked. This huge amount, this part of money that is being taken from us, that also finds a way of not strengthening the political space or participation, because if you look at the democracy itself, people want, just like you mentioned, they have pressure going up for them. They have limitations to participation, because at some point when you need to get involved in certain things, you need to meet somebody that knows somebody that so it kind of limits your participation fully from that you want to see in terms of democracy, delivering the dividends of democracy to the people. So this serves as a limitation and also limits the participation of individuals who really have the leadership skill or have the interest.
Most definitely. And to wrap up on what I said earlier, you see other countries like the UK example, we've got the Prime Minister who lives on Downing Street and he has just an apartment that he has got neighbours. That kind of polity, you know that the first point of attraction is not money. It is called to service to the people, the British people. And if we have that in Nigeria, and then I think that's the first point where we'll see sincere people, since what is attracting you there, it's not as if there's so much money in politics.
It's just to serve.
It's to serve the people. If we have that, I think we'll have a better polity. And then to even talk about what you said more directly, our politics is one that we've always been clamoring for inclusivity. We want to see more people go in from the grassroots. But the inclusivity drive that we've been talking about, if we're going to be honest to ourselves, it's more like a lip service. Because if you say you want to have an inclusive system where everyone is carried along, which is the essence of democracy. Yes. Democracy, like is properly defined, is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But if you have some people who, because of the fact that democracy has become so expensive and they are not able to get themselves in there, then that means it is not more of it becomes not a democracy but an oligarchy, which is a government of a few people. So if we do not demonetize our polity,
it becomes a problem.
It becomes a problem because more people who are supposed to be in that system will not find themselves there, and it doesn't help us at the grassroots level, because government, like we've always said, is local. Politics is something that should start at the beginning, and that beginning is
not from the top.
It's from the beginning that you have a crop of leaders that you eventually get to represent you at the top. Okay. But if you are shutting down opportunity by making it so how much is enough? How many people, to be honest, are able to pick up an average nomination for maybe for the House of Reps, which is around 35 million for some parties, or for the presidency, which is around 100 million naira? How many of the people who are willing, who have not held positions previously, who are not political office holders, who have made one way or the other, have exposure to government coffers, how many of us can truly afford those forms? That's the question we ask ourselves.
And of course, Mukhtar, just like you mentioned, this is one major focus we need to really look at, the way, the pros and cons, and how this adds to the political space and participation, because of course we want to see proper realignment and leaders who are accountable, who want to give out their hearts and serve the people and see Nigeria become a better country than what we have today. Well, Mukhtar, of course, the APC.
Well, we've seen that, like we said earlier, the form itself is pegged at 100 million naira, and that has, of course, generated a lot of controversy. And since that announcement was made, it's something that is seen as significant for aspirants. They ask questions like, what message does it send to ordinary Nigerians, like you said, who wish to participate in leadership? I ask myself, 100 million. I believe I have all the requisite skills and qualifications.
But when you have the funds?
But do I have the funds?
And if I
don't have that fund, I have to turn to what we've seen in our polity, which is godfatherism.
Yes.
I've got to look for someone who would sponsor my candidacy.
And when the person sponsors your candidacy, you have a godfather playing over your head. And
can I represent the people honestly and independently, have a mind of my own when I didn't get there by myself? Somebody sponsored this election, and of course,
it's an interest.
It's an interest, and of course, we know it's a give and take. I would sponsor you to this office, but then these are my own terms and conditions. And because I am helpless, I don't have the funds to on my own win elections. I have to go sign that agreement. And when I do that, I become a puppet to this particular person. I become subservient to him. Instead of being a servant to the people who elected me, I become a servant to the godfather. And most of the godfathers, do they really have national interest at heart?
Okay.
That's the question.
That's one question that's begging for a lot of answers, and of course, that's one of the reasons why we thought this was actually a talking point to look at, basically, Mukhtar. And also we've seen that intense political movements and coalition talks ahead of 2027, especially among opposition figures. How significant, we look at the significance of these defections and the alliances in shaping that election, because like we saw with the party, let's look for instance, the OB movement thing, we saw that play out. He started in 2023. We knew him as the presidential candidate that emerged for, and we saw the wave of
OB movement.
But now we have that's the obedient movement. But now we've seen him in 2026 with the build up to 2027, and initially we saw him with the ADC, and we felt that was another movement coming in, because we saw big wigs in the party, likes of Atiku Abubakar, Amaechi, Arabeshola, the likes, and I was like, these are serious politicians who have tested power, governance, they've seen what the system is, and they feel it's time to come together as a formidable force, opposition, because and then stand against the All Progressives Congress, who's the leading party. And then all of a sudden we saw that twist of realignment, and then we saw the OB movement moving now to have the OK. And the OK is the OB and the Congress, which is 2027 is OK to go, and that comes under the NDC, and that shows the realignment and the shaping of the election and what we should expect at the polls come 2027. And of course, it's not different from what we've seen with the primaries happening across the different parties, and the build-up for politicians, and showing that everybody has interest. When I was speaking to our political correspondent, and I asked him, I said, with the ADC having the big wigs of Atiku Abubakar and also Amaechi and picking the form for presidential seats, and I'm asking myself, who will now be whose vice, in the build-up to this election, and what is going to happen to what we have basically. So I was asking those questions, that what's up? And I was wondering what should play out basically, and of course we've seen these movements play out in the different dimension, and we're wondering what we should do basically for the build-up, because we've seen alliances, like I mentioned, there's a lot of alliances, the lineup, the build-up of all of these things, and that is shaping a whole lot of conversation, Mukhtar.
Of course, the 2027 elections and the opposition power play is one that we've seen that has been gaining ground. But one thing again that is constant with every democracy is the fact that we've got to have opposition. It's normal to have opposition. But what we cannot afford to have is an opposition that is fragmented. That's not something that portends well for democracy. Because if you have a formidable government which is in power, if you intend to unseat that government, then the surest chances that you have is to have a united front as the opposition of the country. Mm-hmm. But if you have a fragmented opposition where the people who are supposed to be under one platform have now fragmented themselves into a different parties, then it's not really one that portends well for democracy. It's like you giving the government basically an easy going ahead of the 2027 election. But then we know democracy is very dynamic and we cannot preempt. We just have to keep our fingers crossed and see how that pans out in 2027.
And of course, Mukhtar, we'll have to see how that pans out. But of course, to join us and have this conversation and break it down from the policy perspective of all of this is a policy analyst who also understands how things should look like. He's a public affairs commentator, and he knows he wants to bring his mind on that policy and what 2027 build-up should be like with the realignment. We'll see. But he will join us shortly after this break. Please stay with us.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Osoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast, real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
Okay, it's good to have you join us back on the program. And of course, like we said, on this discussion segment, we have a whole lot to build up with what we see across Nigeria. Muta and I were having this conversation, and where we talked about the fact that we're seeing that we have a whole lot of things happening around the Nigeria's political crossroad with money, primaries, and the 2027 realignments with the build up to election January 2027. And of course, joining us right now in the studio to speak to this issue, I introduced him earlier, and I'm going to bring us right now. He's in person of Emmanuel Ozomena. He is a policy analyst, a public affairs commentator who would also share his thoughts on what this looks like for Nigeria with the build up to the election. And it's good to have you join us on the program, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Nigeria.
Yeah, let's talk about the sales, because Muta and I were talking about the sales of votes for the primaries and the build up to 2027 election, and it looks like it's excluding a certain class of people to participate in democracy. What we hear from you as a policy analyst and who understands how this plays out, how is that for you with the build up to 2027 general election?
Would you say it strengthens those parties, or it is something that weakens the general system itself?
You know, the irony of it, earlier on in the week, I was thinking through this process. If you recall, ahead of the 2015 election, the then General Muhammadu Buhari, later President Muhammadu Buhari, was lamenting that he didn't have money to buy forms, and that he had to go to his bank. I think his bank, he said he had been using over the years, they know his credit worthy, and take a loan to buy a form. As a retired general, a former head of state, military head of state, lamenting that it's difficult to raise the money to buy form. So I thought that should have created some sort of change in the system. And ahead of 2019 election, you remember there was an alteration to the constitution on what they call not too young to run.
Yes.
So that they can, there were amendments on age requirements for offices from presidency to National Assembly to House of Reps, even to governorship, so that more young people can come into the mix of public office. After that, he signed it, and it was a very salutary effort by the young people who pushed it. There were a lot of NGOs, youth organizations that pushed it, using a member of House of Representatives. So it was a private member bill. And the idea was to create inclusion, to bring in young people, to bring in women, to bring in persons with disability and all that. But again, My worry was in 2019 election, if you recall, APC as the ruling party with President Muhammadu Buhari as the leader of the party increased
the
fees for the force. So it simply shows you the hypocrisy of the political class.
Okay.
So what it means, let me tell you the psychology about the increase in cost of funds is to exclude.
Okay. Because we talk about
exactly.
We had the argument as well.
It's an exclusion.
We have an argument that if you don't raise this fund, but how do you run the particular affairs of this party? It's very expensive to do that.
No, it's very simple. Parties have members. APC, for instance, just like the PDP, claims to be the largest party in Africa. So the question to ask, what is your membership in terms of numbers? So if you ask every member to pay a membership dues of 100 naira, so how many billion are you going to raise
across the country? If
you have that number, except the numbers don't exist.
Okay. So that sounds like
but parties raise money by membership dues and contributions, not funds. In fact, what you pay for form is token. It's for administrative purposes.
Not supposed to be exorbitant.
Not to even run the affairs of the party, nor to run the conventions. That's not the idea. The idea is that you're paying a token. It's a nominal fee.
Okay.
Nominal fee means bring a token. It's like marrying a wife. They say bring 100 naira.
Yeah.
Is that the cost of the wife? Is that the cost?
Something to start.
So a token.
Yeah.
It's called nominal fee. So, because you're not selling that position, but what they do, because I was expecting former President Muhammadu Buhari, God bless his soul, to have, when he became president, because he found as a retired general, as a former head of state, that it was not possible to raise, to pay the money, that he has to go to his bank, first bank, to borrow money, to take a loan. So a young person who wants to run,
so how is he going to get the loan? What loan is he going to get at this point in time? But that brings us to...
Does he have the collateral? So the question simply is this. So when parties come in power or in power, become ruling party or governing party, they will increase it knowing that their market is moving. I remember some years ago in the PDP, one of the former PDP chairman said our market is moving. When people are coming to buy funds.
So market is moving, people are suffering, and it's some people are paying the price because of exclusion that comes to play out.
Absolutely. So when they say women, persons with disability, and young people are not supposed to pay for expression of interest, the free fee is not the expression of interest. It's actually the nomination fee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question to ask: what is the practice elsewhere?
Practices like
The first concept of paying for nomination fee is simply a token. I have spoken in the past. There's exam bodies in Nigeria saying we are making billions. I say no. You are an exam body, a standard. You want to standardize examination, not a profit-making body.
We're not supposed to actually be a profit-making body.
So the question to ask is: if political parties are turning themselves to profit-making body, then the Nigerian tax services should go and tax them. They should pay tax on those things.
Okay, so while some experts or analysts say Nigeria may be heading towards a 3-horse presidential race involving the APC, ADC, and also emerging opposition blocks, do you see this alignment changing the voter behavior? That's one, because we've seen that sales part being a major problem, just like you've mentioned, and especially among young voters and first-time voters or participants who come out to want to vote for people of their choice, basically.
I think my reading of the current evolving political environment is simply this: Nigeria has the lowest voters turnout in the world.
Because we always have voter apathy.
I mean, the last election, municipal election we held in FCT here is an example. It was a single-digit voters turnout.
Same thing was applicable in Anambra as well.
So that's the question. So why don't people come out? It simply shows a loss of faith in the system. People are saying, no, they have decided what they want to do. So why would I waste my time? In the last few days, I think about in the last 4 weeks, I started engaging people just to get a feedback, some sort of a survey.
Okay.
I say, are you going to vote? Do you have voters? The first question is that, do you have voters card?
I mean, I don't have it.
Some say yes. I say,
would you use it?
Are you going to vote on January 16th? Because the date is already known.
It goes by.
They gotta say, why would I waste my time? As the first response, okay, I'll vote, but what difference does it make? Then the people who don't have, even as at yesterday night, I spoke with a young person. I said, do you have voters card? He said no. I said, but they are doing voters registration. Just go and go to so and so. He said, why would I waste my time? And he's supposed to be a first-time voter.
And so imagine.
The first is that the political parties have failed in doing their job. Their job is to mobilize members or Nigerians to vote, create enthusiasm, create that incentive for people say there's hunger on the street. So how can you change that narrative? It's by getting involved.
Most definitely.
That's one. But secondly, the election management body, I think, is the biggest elephant, is the elephant in the room. So how do you manage them? They need to assure Nigerians, look, your vote will count. Your choice will be the sovereign choice. And we are here to be an impartial arbiter. Because if that perception do not change, we will have some number of people participate.
Because they don't have a faith in the system.
Okay, so it's a huge problem. So it's not even whether it's 3 horse race, 15 horse race, 22 horse race, 18 horse race. That's not the issue.
So my concern is when you say the electoral body, that's INEC for Nigeria right now in this process, to reassure or assure Nigerians or citizens about the confidence in the commission, in the electoral system. How would they do that beyond what they do? They've done a lot of sensitization campaigns. They've gone out. They always ensure that timeliness is what they do when they arrive at the voting point. But the challenge is, like I always tell people, INEC is not doing the job alone. It's a multi-stakeholder process where you have
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
be back. We apologize for that technical glitches there, where we need to just make sure that you can hear us very well. We have our guest, of course, that was in the studio in person of Emmanuel Zomina, who is an amazing policy analyst, who is also doing justice to this conversation on Nigeria's political crossroads, the money part of it, the primaries, and 2027 realignment. I wanted to speak on some issues around the commission.
You talked about INEC, and that's a very important point you raised. And do you, from what you've seen, do you think that INEC and the Electoral Act, they are strong enough to regulate issues that we've seen around defection, dual membership, and of course issues of internal democracy? Is INEC in a great position to take charge of these issues?
First of all, the issue is not the Electoral Act.
It's not the act.
Look, you can bring the American Constitution in Nigeria to fail. Why? It's the people. Is a pattern, is a mindset.
So not the system.
So I talked about
it's a mindset.
The mindset.
The point is simply this. I had argued we have a constitution that from 1979 that excludes independent candidacy.
Yes, from the
under the colonial regime, colonial constitution, we had independent candidacy and they have won elections. Why? Because the political party want to be the center of activities. If there's independent candidacy today, let me tell you, a lot of people who will be elected into public office would come from independence.
But earlier you talked about how those parties serve as a system of the grassroots. How would those people get the financial muscle and all the other tools that they need to galvanize vote?
Let me give you an example. In 1959, 56, 59, there was a young man who came back from school. His father had just trained him. His father was incumbent. Dr. Avaniko, who was the father, the son came back from London School of Economics and joined, the father was in NCNC, and the young man joined Action Group in the Southeast to represent. He joined the race. He said, look, my father's idea is outdated. The father has a PhD.
So he's fresh blood.
But he has a master's degree in economics. He said, look, elect me. And he defeated the father in the election. People were begging him. He said, no, that this is politics. So what I'm saying simply is simply this. You could take data on, do you know, the cure to defection is independent candidacy.
Sure.
The moment we have it in the constitution, I don't need to defect. If I don't like any of the 22 political parties, I'll say, look, my people vote me on my honor. And I tell you, you'll be shocked. The parties will shut down, will close down.
I'm looking forward to when we get back to that independent candidacy.
Like I told you, I think the concern is one, how do they mobilize
the organization to the individual?
So are you saying that handle it with the kind of things we see today in the economy and the way they, just like you mentioned, the cost of the forming is correct, and for late Muhammadu Buhari, the president, he went to borrow money. So if we get to have the independent candidacy play out, do you see all the individuals giving that level playing field?
No, it will. Let me give you an example. You know, most times APC have just done their primaries. Or is ongoing at the moment. They've kicked it off. You've seen what they call a consensus.
Yes.
If you ask me, that's a crazy idea. I'm doing an article on two tales of democracy. At the moment, as you speak, there's an election, upcoming November election in the United States. Because midterm election. So primaries are ongoing. Both for Republican parties and Democrat, and then independent are also, for independents in the US, you simply go and fill a form and say, you fill a form. The fees are nominal fees.
Because, like you mentioned, the US now.
That's one. Big incumbents are losing election. There's a very outspoken Texas congresswoman. She lost her nomination. People are losing nomination
to independent candidates.
No, to within their parties. So if you now prefer, you want to put yourself forward, become an independent. So, but the key issue I'm saying is that, but in Nigeria, somebody is saying consensus. I spoke. There's a former governor who is in the Senate, and his governor who will leave by May 29th want to replace him. And they now met somewhere and said, we have adopted the governor. The man was on television. I said, no. How can you adopt?
The consensus.
Even at the venue of the consensus, he was not allowed in. So that's crazy. So what I'm saying essentially is simply this. We've seen the primaries ongoing.
Yeah.
And then what they did, I think, was to say you can't defect if you within the same election cycle, if you buy a form and all that.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's what they are trying to do, is just to put a golden chain on people's neck and hands. You know, you are locked in this party and all that. I've seen names they say we disqualified, and there were no description on why you disqualified them.
Came out.
A former colleague of mine in one of the states in the north wrote on his Facebook page 2 days ago that the governor has impressed on him, the traditional ruler has impressed on him, and she stepped down. In 2023, he also impressed on him that she stepped down. So he's leaving it up to God, that God decides his future.
But let's get it straight. I like the fact that you give examples and how this pans out for the political space, because like we're looking at the crossroad and how this is playing out. Yeah. But finally, on the final notes, for perhaps let you go, I'm sorry because of our time. As the road leads to 2027, basically, the momentum is gathering. There's a whole lot of planning for. So what should Nigerians watch closely for in the coming months? Because we see the primaries, of course, like you saw, the primaries are ongoing across the party lines, and we're seeing what's happening, and we're looking forward to where we can make it easy in line with other clients, like you've mentioned, how that can make our democracy speak on a final or a nice tone. What's your thought basically on that?
First, the Independent Election Management Body, INEC, should remain true to their name, Independent National Electoral Commission. They should remain faithful to the fidelity.
They've been faithful.
Keep fidelity. That's one. Then two, Nigerians, voters, should interrogate politicians. Ask them what is it that you're going to do for any politician who refuses to attend debate? Should vote him out.
Okay,
it shows the person it's not serious.
It's not accountable.
Yeah, because you need to tell us what you want to do. And the moment you are not ready to face the camera, then that means you are not ready for leadership.
Okay. I like that too, because I know we had this argument in 2023 where we wanted more of debates to showcase.
And many of the politicians never turned up.
So I think if we carry this mindset or this campaign forward, it should give us the best.
Because that provides a platform to hold them accountable.
So that just can ask.
I remember in 2015 when Muhammadu Buhari became president, there was this argument over did he promise this, didn't he promise it, and he was saying, tell me where I promised.
So until we have them accountable, we cannot do away with around them. Okay, that brings us to the size of this particular segment. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Ozomina, for your time with us. A whole lot of thought has been shared, and we hope that the political space will pick from this, INEC picks from this, and then the voters themselves come out not just before time, but continuously keep voting so our democratic system can have a better front, and we see Nigeria be a better country than it is. So well, we'll have a whole lot lined up for us, and we wish we could have this conversation still going. Of course, the battle for 2027 may still be months away, but the conversations around party structures, political financing, coalition building, and democratic participation are already defining the future of Nigeria's democratic system. Mukhtar.
Yes, thank you very much for that conversation, and of course we'll go on a break. When we return, we'll get our second conversation.
Oh, that's the conversation highlighted for us, because we have someone who's going to speak on some issues and we want you to join on that conversation. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Global Morning. Of course, there's a whole lot lined up for you. The discussion segment has started, and of course, you heard our guest where he spoke about what Nigeria should look like. And of course, I'm still here with Mukhtar Kasim, and we're moving our conversation, still staying with the political space,
but in a different dimension.
A different dimension, yes. And how the inclusivity of people should be, because we want an inclusive system of governance happening. And of course, we're going to look at beyond just voting. What should Nigerian STEM look like in terms of inclusivity? What the way should be forward? Well, we want to talk about, can persons living with disability or persons with disability truly participate fully and also lead in the Nigerian politics, owing to how the Nigerian political space looks like? Mukhtar.
Of course, we've been having a lot of clamor for inclusion, saying that we would give women chances, people with disability chances. We've seen a progress that being made in terms of having appointments, but then people have said beyond just this, what they term as tokenism appointment, can we truly have a system where people with disability in particular will be holding political offices where they get to channel their own cause and for the betterment of the community? That's going to be the outlook of our conversation.
Okay, so talking about that, there's a whole lot happening, and of course, Mukhtar, today in the world we see a lot of things happening, and we want to turn our focus to that across the world. Conversations around democracy are no longer focused only on voting, from what we see, or voting right basically, but also on representation, inclusion, like we talked about, inclusion and equal participation in leadership. Well, in Nigeria, we have scenarios playing out in all of those cases, of course, Mukhtar. And one conversation getting increasing attention is the political inclusion, which is one thing you are. Of course,
I'm a very passionate advocate for the cause of disability.
Persons with disability, because over the years, you know what it looks like.
Of course.
Over the years, we've seen many persons with disabilities have actively participated in voting on election day, coming out, no matter how it looks like, they just want to ensure that their votes count. We've seen them with campaign supporters and also advocate, but now there is a growing concern or a growing call for something more for persons with disability, not just participating at the ballot box, but participation in leadership itself, Mukhtar, basically.
Of course, that conversation is one that becomes louder through initiatives like a campaign that is on the way, and it's titled the Able to Run campaign, which is out there to encourage people with disability to contest for offices and also become active players in governance. And of course, but beyond advocacy and awareness, one important question is one that is continued to be asked, and that is, can persons with disability go beyond the ballot and also have a voice in governance and equal rights and opportunities?
And of course, because we want to have that as a focal point for ahead of 2027, we'll join right now this morning virtually, where we'll see our guests who will join us virtually speak to this issue. Just like Mukhtar has said, he's one advocate that also speak on the issue of inclusion and how that should add up to what the inclusion should be like for persons with disability. And joining us on this conversation are representatives of the TAF Africa, that's CAF Africa. We have Dr. Andrew Adaji, who is the program manager of TAF Africa, and of course George Awani, the assistant program manager, who will join us right now because I'm standing by already virtually to speak on this issue. And of course, we couldn't have done this at the best time than this period of the build up to 2027.
Most definitely.
I know it's good to have you join us on the program, gentlemen. Amazing day to speak on this issue, the build up to the 2027 general election. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you for having us.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, we also have George as well there. He's also part of it. George, thank you for joining us as well. It's good to have you join us. Amazing. This is one conversation that should speak, of course, loud and clear to Nigerians and, of course, even Nigerians in diaspora and across fields. Dr. Andrew, thank you for joining us, of course. Let's start with Dr. Andrew.
Let's begin with Dr. Andrew. Thank you very much once again for joining on the conversation. I would like to ask, when we talk about the broader picture, when we talk about people with disability, what should truly look like? What should inclusion truly look like beyond the symbolic representation we hear? What is the true essence of this movement of not to able to run campaign, basically?
So thank you. In 2025, we conducted a research and then to see the participations of persons with disability in both elective position in Nigeria and the appointive position in Nigeria. And we discovered that from 2019 to 2025, of all the available elective position in Nigeria, we have just 4 persons elected into various positions in Nigeria. Just 4, representing 0.1% of all the elective positions in Nigeria. And then to now interest you to know that the 4 persons and the 0.1% appointed position, all of them were male, all of them were men. And looking at this, we'll discover that it's not too good for us because in the entire population of Nigeria, we have the persons with disability about 15%. So it means that these 15% are not ably represented. Nobody is there speaking for them, speaking for the challenges that they face and all of that. And so this led us as an organization to go into what we call Able to Run, bringing in persons with disability to run in, for positions. 15% of the entire population is enough to bring in the president. And so it's enough to say no. If we don't want this person, it's enough. And so, but these people are not represented, and this is one of the things that led us into coming up with this concept. It's a massive concept, is a massive movement. We want persons with disability to be represented. For the appointing position, we have just few number of them also all over the country based on the research that was conducted by us. We have 213 of them, all over the country. And it's in just 27 states. So we still have some states who don't have who did not give appointment to one single person with disability. And then when we also look at the quality of the appointment also, it also calls for concern because about 55.2% of the people appointed, were just special assistants and senior special assistants, some that throughout the period of the appointment might not even have a day to sit with the governor or sit with those who are the core decision makers in the state. So all of this calls for concern, and this is what is driving us as an organization. That persons with disability first should be included, should be given opportunity to run. We know it's not going to come easy, just like we've been campaigning over the years for women, which we've not been able to actualize what is expected of us. For persons with disability also, we'll keep pushing until we get there. Thank you.
Amazing. There you have spoken to us about Dr. Andrew. Thank you so much for bringing us up on that. And it's amazing that we see that you're pushing for these voices and this representation to speak to for Nigerians and persons living with disability in the political space. Let's turn to George. Because for many Nigerians, disability conversations often revolve around welfare or support system. I heard Dr. Andrew speak on some of those issues, but I won't put it to you. But this conversation is actually different. It's about leadership, governance, and power. Why is representation in politics so important for persons with disability? Because you want to move beyond the voting points and then getting them to stay in the leadership role and be the one to lead and look at the issue of policy making and governance.
Okay, so I didn't get you clear. It was
okay, so I was talking about, I said, why is representation in politics so important for persons with disability? Because the conversation is moving now. It's quite different from just participating. It is now about leadership, governance, and power. And looking at the kind of political space of Nigeria, how visible is that, and why is it important to the community of persons living with disabilities?
Thank you very much for that question. As you've rightly said, we are currently in Ekiti State in preparation towards the forthcoming governorship election coming up on the 20th of June. And what are we doing here? We are here to also create awareness among the communities of persons with disabilities. We are going down to the grassroots to do that, to say that come out and vote. You have the right to vote. And the law is backing you. There are provisions in the law that provides for your participation as persons with disabilities. And of course, this is a grassroots campaign towards ensuring that persons with disabilities have the right information and are aware of their rights and are aware of the provision of the law. And of course, what INEC is also doing to ensure that they fully participate in the electoral process. So that's what we're doing here. So we've been doing that for years. But like you rightly said, it's not enough for a person with disability to come out to vote. We need persons with disabilities, to represent the community of persons with disabilities in leadership. Persons with disabilities are able to run. Persons with disabilities are electable. That is why we call it the Able to Run Electability Campaign. We are saying that it's important that persons with disabilities are elected into power. It is important that persons with disabilities are, sit at the table with all other decision makers to make decisions. It is enough of taking decisions for persons with disabilities. Nothing about us without us. Once we are not on the table, you can't be discussing what concerns us, what affects us while we are not there. And that is why it is important. A person with disability have the lived experience with disability, knows where it pinches, knows the challenges and the issues that are there firsthand in terms of experience. And so who is at a better position to make such decisions, to make such calls? So person with disability sitting at the table to make decisions is very important. Because, for example, if you go to public buildings, go to offices, even government offices, you realize that those offices are not physically accessible to persons with disabilities. And if a person with disability is not there, of course, other people will take decisions, not considering the fact that we also have persons with disabilities who are also citizens in the country. So it's important that persons with disabilities are there, are involved in decision making. Imagine a person with disability being the president of Nigeria today. That person will ensure that Aso Rock is physically accessible to start with. And then, of course, also ensure that our laws are inclusive, So persons with disabilities being part of leadership is very important to ensuring that we create an accessible and inclusive society for all. If they are not there, while decisions are taken, while decisions are being made, of course, they won't be able to make input to ensure that they influence decision making, to the point that that decision making is inclusive. And we are running a democracy. Democracy is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. And who are those people? They are people with disabilities, people without disabilities, women, and everyone else. If any category or if any segment of the society is left out of this people we're talking about, then we can't say that our democracy is complete. It's important that persons with disabilities are part of decision making. Thank you.
Fact that you've broken down, like the advocacy or the awareness creation you're putting across for persons with disabilities. Like you said, you're in Ekiti and you're moving around with this awareness. Generally, I want to put this to you, George, from what you've said. Would you say Nigeria has made genuine progress in political inclusion for persons with disabilities? Or are we still largely at the awareness stage before this push for leadership role takes place?
Sorry, you may have to say that again. It was breaking. I couldn't get you clearly.
Okay, I should take that again. Okay, so I'm saying in your own, from what you said, you're moving around and you're trying to create awareness. Would you say Nigeria has made genuine progress in political inclusion for persons with disabilities, or are we still largely at the awareness stage for persons with disabilities, because you're pushing for leadership role right now? So what would you say largely? Let's do that in 1 minute.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I don't want to sound too pessimistic. I will say that currently, with all honesty, we are not where we are supposed to be in terms of disability inclusion in Nigeria. But have we made some progress? Yes. We are not where we were before now. Before now, there was not even a law to start with. It's disability inclusion was just like a charity case, just to like say, okay, we have some people who are persons with disabilities, let's do something in terms of welfare and all of that. So but now we have the law, we have the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Prohibition Act 2018, which of course prohibits discrimination, based on disability. At least we have something on ground. And of course, we have also some policies on ground to ensure disability inclusion. For example, we have the national policy on inclusive education. The target of that is to ensure that everyone else is included in our education programs. All right. So we also have the National Access to Work Scheme. That is to ensure that persons with disabilities, who wants to work with the private sector, that scheme supports them, support the private sector employers, to employ or to recruit persons with disabilities, to be part of their organizations. There are quite a number of efforts, initiatives, to ensure disability inclusion. So we have actually moved from where we were to where we are currently. So we have made some progress, but what we have on ground is not enough. We need to do more. Like we are talking about ensuring that we have representation. Persons with disabilities are represented, in leadership position, not just appointing, as you've had my colleague said earlier, not just appointing positions, but also elective position. Political parties need to do everything they're supposed to do to ensure that persons with disabilities are supported, to vie for offices. I know of a couple of political parties who ensure that they provided some kind of, or they cut down the cost of nomination forms, for persons with disabilities. Some as far as cutting it down to by 75%, some 50%. So yeah, these are laudable efforts by political parties to ensure, but we are really asking for more because the gap is huge. The gap of representation is huge. We need to close that gap. So we have a lot of work to do, and that is why we launched the campaign, the Able to Run campaign, to ensure that persons with disabilities, are part of that. So we're not just running campaigns and calling on government to ensure persons with disabilities, are supported to participate in governance. We also have a program. We call it the Political Leadership Program for Persons with Disabilities. This is a program targeted at persons with disabilities who are interested in elective positions, you know, in terms of leadership training, in terms of training them on strategic communications and other skills they need, you know, to, you know, be able to actually campaign, you know, stand, you know, together, I mean, fight, you know, for positions together with other, you know, contestants, other people who are vying for offices, you know, in different political parties. Whatever it takes for them to
see that you have a whole lot of policies lined up and a whole lot of things put out for this. And I like the fact that the campaign is moving, just like you said, and there's a whole lot of fronts looking forward to, and the reasons why persons with disability need to be at that position to also transmit or put out the information for the community if we want to get it right for the persons living with disability. Just like you mentioned, the civil service space, if one is not there, how would you make the provisions for the pathway or accessibility to basic needs with the persons with disability? But Mutare has something for Dr. Andrew.
My question is going to be to Dr. Andrew, and I'm going to build up on what Mr. George has said. From the engagements that you've had with people and with disabilities and among communities that we've gone, how is the mindset for people with disability? Are we having a change where we have the belief system that yes, this is a movement that we as people with disability can actually go into this movement and actually see ourselves in office? What's the mindset for the people with disability? Are they having it with optimism? Is the move gaining momentum, and is it getting acceptance by people with disability? That question is for Dr. Andrew, basically.
Dr. Andrew, if you're with us, can you just speak to this issue, the build-up to what Dr. George has actually spoken about?
Sorry, can you come again?
Okay, we'll take the question again. Okay, so Mukhtar is basically asking, from your engagements and from what George has said so far with the communities and young people, are more young persons with disability beginning to see politics as an avenue or a space where they can take leadership role? From what your engagement looks like from your platform, that's the TAF Africa, and be able to run a campaign that you're pushing out and moving the campaign across the states?
Okay, so if I may get you clearly, you're asking whether the persons with disability are accepting this campaign. For persons with disabilities, you know, over the years we have interactions with them, and they are so much interested in this particular campaign. You need to see them embracing it. On the 12th, we had a press conference, talking all about, this able to run campaign stuff and all of that, and they are willing. And you see them coming out and they're interested. In fact, we currently send out forms for them to be enrolled in our leadership ops, and we currently have almost 200 of them. The campaign is targeted at 180 of them, and those who have registered are close to 200. And the framework for this campaign is in 4 categories: the leadership development skills, mentorship, and then skill enhancement, and then technology integration. In all of this, we're going to put them through, because it's you agree with me that one of the challenges we have as a nation is the challenge of leadership. So we wouldn't want persons with disability to go up there, pick up this leadership position, and also mess up the whole system. So before launching them out, we'll put them through leadership development training. And then also we'll attach them to mentors, those who've tested and we know that, yes, these people have integrity. They will mentor them over the years. And then this requires skills that they need, communication skills, just like my colleagues have said, and all other skills. We're also going to train them on that. And then technology integration using the social medias and all of that. So persons with disability, they have the ability for this. We've interacted with a whole lot of them, and they're out there in the little space where they are doing wonders, doing great things. So they can also translate that into leadership, into electable leadership in this country. And I'm telling you, you'll see the wonders and great things that they will do. Also, just to touch a little on what my colleague said about policies and all of that we have, we have in this country. For me, it goes beyond just having those beautiful and unique policies. The implementation is one of the things that we have challenges with. And we believe that if persons with disability is elected into elective position, they should be able to push for it, for the implementations of those policies. We have wonderful education, inclusive education policies. But the point is this, if I'll see us, how inclusive is our education? Wonderful and unique, accessible, policy. All our buildings should be accessible. We're currently in Ekiti and we were moving from hotels to hotels looking for where we can host events. And most of these, hotels are not accessible. Most of our public spaces are still not accessible. And we have laws that speaks to this. So if someone someone with disability is elected, they should be able to go, through this, implementations. And so that's one of the reasons we are asking them, come out and be elected, come out and run for positions. We have a lot of issues around disability. Our transport system, are they accessible? The rail system, the road system, the air system, all of them, are they accessible? So imagine having someone with disability as a Minister of Aviation. It will automatically ensure that our airspace are accessible. So this is what we were talking about. Electing someone with disability as a governor or as a speaker, we push for this, implementation. So this is one of the reasons we're asking them to come out, and they are seriously, interested. A lot of them are willing to, to run. A lot of them are willing to run.
Amazing, Dr. Andrew. I like the fact that this is actually a whole lot put about. We need to wrap this up. So finally, in one sentence, if that can sum up for you quickly, are you optimistic that Nigeria can eventually build a political system where leadership opportunities are truly open to everyone? Because you've said, yes, persons are there, but you're also doing your training for them to also lead properly, and because the enabling environments would be given if we have proper structures like the transportation network you talked about. How visible is that? But do you see leadership position truly open to everyone? From this campaign, your organization is pushing, they're able to run, because you said persons with disability can run. Let's do that in 30 seconds, please.
It is doable. For us, we believe that whatsoever is conceivable is achievable. And that's why we are putting in all our strength, putting in all our efforts, and give us time. You'll see it happening. Thank you.
Judge, quickly, your thoughts. Let's wrap it up as well, so we get your final take on this. Your president has done an amazing job. Trust me, I'll say that in 30 seconds, because we don't have much time.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I am saying that persons with disabilities don't have all to become president. Let's also start from the grassroots. You can become a councillor as a person with disability. You can become a local government chairman. So we are targeting even the grassroots. By the time we sweep the whole grassroots, we will be able to now build, to the national. But of course, we are not leaving the grassroots behind. So persons with disabilities, go out there, be courageous, pick up forms, contest for the councillorship and local government chairman at the local government level. Thank you.
So much, George and Andrew. Thank you so much for your time. Amazing discussions here, and we look forward to seeing more engagement of persons with disability. Of course, Mukhtar.
I think I've been inspired by George. I might just pick up a form for my councillorship here. It's a very lovely conversation, yes, and it's one that is very timely, looking at the 2027 just around the corner. And we hope to see an inclusive system where every person is given a voice in spite of their challenges, physical or not.
Okay, once a very big thank you to our guests there, Andrew and George. Thank you so much, George. George, right? I don't want to mix up your names, but I have Andrew Adadi, right? And George as well. Okay, thank you so much, George, for helping me out there. A great time with you. We look forward to seeing this transform into reality, because we want to see an all-inclusive system of government. Great job, and we wish you all the best as you push this campaign. Thank you so much for your time with us on Global Morning. Amazing discussions we've had on Global Morning. Yes, and the political space can actually stand tall and do better if we have an inclusive system.
Of course, there's enough room in the sky for everyone to shine.
Of course, the sky is big enough.
It's big enough for all of us to try.
It's bright enough.
It's one that can allow a lot of inclusivity.
Yes, of course. We look at possibilities and a stable space for every Nigerian to take part in political participation and, of course, be politically inclusive in whatever we do. Well, political inclusion is ultimately about ensuring that every citizen has not just a voice, but also a seat at the table as conversations around representation truly grow. And many Nigerians believe Nigerians' democracy can only become stronger when leadership spaces truly reflect the diversity of its people, of course, Mukhtar.
Of course, it's a very, like I said, important and timely discussion, because for every democracy to thrive, you've got to have voices of the minority, and people with disability are obviously minorities in the country. Of course, they are about 35 million. It's not one that has compared to the
population we have.
Minority, the fact that you might be a minority in size doesn't mean you're a minority in
a voice, and also the impact.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that word. Well, that brings us to the size of Global Morning. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. It's been an amazing one with us here from the onset.
In the beginning, we brought you Taste and Texture, we brought you the newspaper review, all of them, which were putting yourself in
and then you stay fit, of course, and beautiful as always. And of course, the discussion segments, amazing discussions on what funds should be like in the political space and give room for more inclusive system from the grassroots and across board. Thank you so much for being a part of the Global Morning segment with us this beautiful Sunday. We hope that you have a wonderful day ahead of you and a beautiful start into the week. I am Anyete Patrick, of course.
And I am Mukhtar Kasim. Saying a very big thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Have an amazing day ahead of you. Bye.